Hi, I am Dr. Janine Krippner. I am a volcanologist based here in New Zealand. I'm an honorary research associate at the University of Waikato, where I'm working on several projects on different volcanoes and different places around the world. A volcanologist is essentially a scientist who studies volcanoes. So we're a little bit like detectives in that we look at every different tiny part and the really big parts about volcanoes and put all of that together to understand how volcanoes work and how that interacts with the world around it, whether that be if it's in the middle of nowhere or if it's around people, how can we keep people safe? There are different kinds of volcanologists. Some of us work in the field on the volcanoes more than others do. Some people work in a laboratory looking at samples, doing chemistry. Some people run computer simulations of different types of eruptions, so trying to understand the really nitty-gritty mathematics side. And depending on which ways you go with those, that'll dictate what kind of classes you take. So some of us do a lot of geology-based classes, and that's the way I went. Other subjects that are important, math is important, any kind of science topics, any kind of earth science topics, because they all interact with volcanoes, whether it's water or the atmosphere or soils. So some of my favorite parts of the job are definitely being out in the field on the volcanoes themselves and going out there and looking at all the different aspects. So what does the volcano do? Is it producing a lava flow? Is it producing an ash plume? Is it producing a pyroclastic flow, which is a hot raging mass of rock and volcanic gases that go across the landscape really, really quickly? Or is it just sitting there producing gas? So the processes, what the volcano is doing itself. And then the hazards. So how are these dangerous? What areas might be impacted? I've looked at Ngārahoe volcano in New Zealand, which if you've watched Lord of the Rings is Mount Doom in the Lord of the Rings series. I am working on a new volcano that's a year and a half, so it's quite a baby volcano, but it did produce a lava flow that destroyed a lot of homes, a lot of houses, and that's on the island of La Palma in the Canary Islands. I've also worked on a volcano in Russia, Mount St. Helens in the United States. So getting out there, getting dirty in the field, looking at rocks is definitely my favorite part of being a volcanologist. I always loved volcanoes. I don't remember a time in my life when I didn't love volcanoes. We have these volcanoes here in New Zealand where I live again, and when I was a little girl, I was absolutely in love with them. I couldn't stop staring at them when my family brought us near them. So I thought this was way too cool to be a real job. I didn't know any scientists. I didn't know anyone who'd been to university. I'm from a town who has a lot of farmers and hardworking people, but definitely not scientists. When I was 13 years old, my geography teacher wrote volcanologist on the board and explained that that is a scientist who studies volcanoes, and that was the moment I knew that is what I was going to be for the rest of my life. So what I really like about being a scientist is the work we're doing is figuring out things. We're figuring out things that haven't been figured out before. And then we're applying those things to help society. And part of that is the incredible people I get to work with around the world who are not just in volcanology, but in other areas, other jobs as well. Meeting those people is just one of my favorite things as well of being a scientist. Getting to travel and experience different cultures and learn from different people as well. Being a scientist is really following a process. We're being creative, we're being curious, we're coming up with new questions to ask and finding new ways to look at those questions. Being a scientist is just like being a kid where you're thinking, what is that? How did that get there? Why is it like that? What happened there? So it's looking around, being really inquisitive and curious about your environment, and then going about working with other people to figure out those answers.